How the Coho got his hooked nose. Long ago, before you were born, or even before your parents and grandparents were born, it is said that the Coho salmon looked much like any other fish. In those days, the Upper Stala people say that when the Coho left the salt water to go back to the freshwater rivers to spawn, his nose did not become hooked as it does today. Nowadays, of course, it is easy to recognize a coho because it develops a hooked nose as it swims up the river to spawn. No one knows exactly why this happens to the coho's nose, but the Upper Stala people say that it happened this way. There was once a quohuith who was living happily with his wife in the saltwater sea. The time had come, for they were both about 3 years old, to leave the salt water and to begin the long journey up the Fraser River. It was their time to spawn. The journey was a tiring and difficult one for the two fish. In order to reach the spawning grounds, they had to swim up the river against the strong current. At times, they felt they couldn't swim any further, and the quohuith's wife became so tired that she hung on to her husband's tail as he swam bravely along. The quohuith felt that he must rest, or both he and his wife would die of exhaustion. But where, in the swift water, could he find a place to stop and catch his breath? At that moment, they reached a spot in the river where the current was not so strong. Because he had a few minutes in which he did not have to battle the strong water, the quohuith was able to rest. His strength renewed, he continued to swim up the river. It was not long before the water became treacherous again, and the fish were even more tired than before. "Hang on to my tail," said the quohuith to his wife. "We'll get there yet." The desperate fish looked around him for a place to rest. Not far ahead was a tree growing on the bank of the river, and its branches reached down into the water. Suddenly, the quohuith had an idea. He headed straight for the tree, and when he reached it, he hooked his nose around one of the branches. With his wife still clinging to his tail, and his nose hooked around the branch, the two fish rested until they felt able to go on. After that, every time the quohuith saw overhanging branches in the water, he would stop, hook his nose onto the branch, and rest. The quohuith swam and rested, until they reached their spawning grounds. But by the end of the journey, the quohuith's nose had a hook in it which would not straighten out. The quohuith himself felt that it was worth anything, even a hooked nose, to reach the spawning grounds safely. And that is why, ever since, the quohuith's nose becomes hooked as he swims up the river to spawn.